Good hello everyone. This week I'm looking at Kate Middleton. My word, he really is punching above his weight, isn't he? Now, much like William's mother, Kate Middleton is a water hand, and a very sort of psychic looking water hand, but then there's also a lot of creativity here. Do you know what? In fact, I'm getting a lot of the very similar qualities I saw in Princess Diana's palm. I've also read her palms. Check out her reading, I'll put that in the description. So when I say water hand, I mean a long palm and a long fingers. How we determine what long fingers are by judging the length of the longest finger by comparing it against the length of the palm itself. And if the Saturn finger, that's the middle finger, the longest finger, generally speaking, is at least 7/8 of the palm's length or longer, we know we have long fingers. Ergo, a water hand, long palm, long fingers. And Kate Middleton certainly has, a long palm. There's no doubt about it. This is a rectangular palm, and she certainly, her fingers are certainly long. So, the thing that really stands out, though, is that the index finger, look at the positioning of the fingers in general. On the left hand in particular, Jupiter and Saturn stand pretty level. And Jupiter is certainly reaching way past halfway of the first tip of Saturn. This shows us strong confidence, strong leadership qualities, and a strong feeling of self-worth, self-esteem, where the rest of the fingers are set on the palm tend to slope downwards. And so, although Jupiter appears to be longer than Apollo, it's deceptive because if we offset the length of Jupiter against Apollo where it's set on the palm, so I'll just measure up Jupiter there. And actually, it's the same length. It's the same, Apollo is slightly longer than Jupiter, but not by much. And this actually shows a great deal of balance in terms of what Kate feels she's capable of achieving. Her opinion of herself is in line with what she's able to achieve. Now, where the fingers rise from the palm at their highest points indicates a person's true abilities in that area where what that finger represents. So in other words, Jupiter and Saturn being the highest set shows that Kate has strong, her abilities lie strongest in her leadership, in her self-belief, in her ability to judge and rule over others, and also in her social standing as well, in her sense of right and wrong, in her sense of duty as well. And that's certainly not to say that she doesn't have creative abilities or indeed talents or an ability to express herself. It's just that these are less these traits, these sides to her are more inhibited and have had less development over time. So actually this kind of arch is exactly the kind of thing you want to see in someone in her position. This is a really positive sign. And the low set Mercury finger is such a common feature of people in high positions of aristocracy. Members of the royal family quite often have this, and it shows an inability to express the deeper emotions and struggling to sort of communicate the feelings, I suppose, in closer relationships. And part of the reason for this stems back to childhood, and the reason why we see this in so many members of the royal family is because quite often when young they're raised by nannies, not their actual parents, and so the crucial bonding time, that need to bond between biological parents is missed, and there's that feeling, there's that need to be accepted and wanted and loved by their actual parents, and just generally spend more time with them, and that need that is has this sort of negative effect on expressing. It has a detrimental knock-on effect on the ability to communicate in closer relationships. It has an effect on how we perform, I suppose, in our communicative abilities in close relationships in later life. And generally speaking, all communicative issues stem from childhood. Now, again, that's not to say that Kate doesn't have the ability. It's just that generally people with lower set Mercury fingers tend not to air their feelings as much as others. Shows a bit of conservatism. Conservatism? She's conservative. But where I'm seeing a lot of similarities in Kate and Diana's hands, and I wasn't expecting to see this actually, is this low set thumb. And that's an excellent sign. And also, it's, considering that it's so low set, it's also reaching way past the halfway mark of the third phalanx of Jupiter, and this shows really she is a deep thinker. There's a lot going on here. She's a humanitarian, a book lover, likely very intelligent. The length of Mercury is often a telling factor, and it's far longer than the bottom two phalanges of Apollo, and this really gives us an indication as to her abilities to voice her opinions, express herself and communicate. Now, Saturn itself, although it is, as I have already measured against the palm, these are long fingers, Saturn itself is on the short side. Apollo is long, Jupiter is long, and I suppose it provides this sort of impression that Saturn is short. And so these this opinion of herself, who she is as a person, her personality, and her strength of character is really sort of almost overtaking. And I'm smiling because I'm getting a sense of who she is really here. This is a very optimistic person. This is someone who is actually down to earth enough, but also this is certainly someone who sees the best in all situations. And I've had a look at her fingernails as well, and they're very sort of oval and rounded. And again, this shows optimism. This is not really someone who gets on all that well with bureaucracy and the rules. This is someone who, in a lot of respects, this is actually quite a free-spirited individual. A bit of a happy-go-lucky. This is a really good sign for a water hand, in fact, because most water hands have a very sort of melancholic, depressive tendencies. They're prone to anxiety and depression and mental health issues, but actually I see very healthy qualities in terms of mental health here. So there's a lot of negating going on here. There's balance, a lot of balance. And, because although Apollo is slightly lower set, when you offset it against Jupiter, it's very even. And this is one of the signs of fame in palmistry as well. A lot of it comes down to hormones and how she was brought up as well. I think there was likely a strong father figure in her life. Interesting to me to note that the left hand here, we don't see much of a gap between Jupiter and Saturn just here, but on the right there appears to be one, and I think that at some point she had sort of lost contact with her father, or a strong father figure, and that seems to have affected her. Jupiter tends to point towards the thumb a little bit. This is an independent thinker, and her ability to break down information is quite strong as well. This is, as I say, not someone for bureaucracy or the rules. She's a bit of a rule breaker, really. And what is interesting is what we have here appears to be, at first glance, a Mars line, a strong Mars line that runs all along the inside of the lifeline, but actually what I think we have here is a double lifeline. Double lifelines are quite rare, and in most cases they represent a spouse with a far greater income, and I think that's probably what we're seeing here. It's a sort of an assistance of this person's environment. And there appears to be a solid Mercury line, and it stems right from the in a double lifeline itself, right up onto Mercury. At least that's what I'm getting here. It's sort of hard to see, although this is a fairly clear image. We're maxed out now in terms of how far zoomed in I can go. And this sort of Mercury line, this straight rising from the lifeline type of Mercury line, is known as the protection from vampires in Russian palmistry, and it's no joke over there. This really provides someone with keen instincts, but also a great amount of luck. I mean, curiously, the fate line, if you look real close here, you can just about see a line that kind of creeps in from underneath Pluto and begins this steady, straight, certain rise up towards Saturn. It's quite remarkable, really. And I've only really seen this kind of thing 2 times before. Princess Diana actually had a similar thing, and so did Marilyn Monroe. And I don't like that, actually, because the common denominator is there. They both died very young by circumstances that were far outside of their control. The other thing is, although I have stated this as positive, the other way to interpret this, because let's be clear, this is still quite blurry, although this is the clearest image I've got, and it's not bad for a Sunday case study, you know, considering it's just an image I've snapped offline. The Mercury line here, or otherwise known as the liver line, sometimes referred to as the health line, it becomes weaker when it gets past this fate line. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can still see it just about rising up there, but it's not as strong. The fate line still rises, you know, above and beyond the headline, which is good news, past the age of, you know, 35 and onwards. But as it hits the health line, it seems to become a little bit more unclear. Health line, heart line, sorry. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and it is difficult to really see here. Sometimes, you know, the course of the fate line changes as it hits a line. And what this really means, you know, what it shows is that whatever that representation of that line is has something to do with that change. So if this is what we're seeing, in fact, and it's the left hand, would show that the way she feels about her career requires a change at this time, sort of ish. That's kind of what I'm getting. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but because obviously I can't get a great deal of clarity here, it could just be that the fate line does actually stop at the heart line. Now, if in fact this fate line is heading towards the heart line and stops there, which I'm not entirely certain that's what's happening, because I can sort of see something there. If that is the case, then this person feels as though she's heading towards some sort of disaster where she feels very strongly about this, and it could be to do with her relationship, not necessarily, you know, her marriage. It could be a relationship within the family. In any case, there's a feeling of sort of impending doom and disaster there, a feeling that she can't go on, perhaps. Now, interestingly, on the right hand, this is the clearest image I can get of the right hand. We do see a very different picture. You can see the Mercury line more clearly here. We can also see that the fate line rises, and it does appear to, you know, it crosses the headline here. Here's the heart line. It crosses the heart line, so that's good. But notice the lifeline. Notice just how deep and strong, how intense it is. Look at that strength of constitution and vitality, and then it kind of weakens as we get to the age of, well, look, 35 or so. And alongside this, we see a very, well, that was a bit of a slip up from me, a very strong Mars line. This need to fight here, to battle this, you know, even before this obvious, you know, recent diagnosis of cancer that, you know, we've seen in the last few days. There was actually quite a lot of fighting going on There's a real sort of sense of a struggle here, perseverance, a need to drive. There's some sort of resistance going on in this person's life. And also what I notice is the heart line doesn't appear very strong, neither does the headline here. I mean, it's very faint. What's confusing me is this little line rising up from the lifeline at the age of around about 42, and it stops at this very creative headline. And a fate line that stops at a headline shows it's not a particularly good sign. It shows there is some potential lacking of making the right decisions here. I mean, I'm not massively concerned because we see this, we've got this other fate line right here, which is the overall, this is her true course of fate, which is undeniably not something that she's all that in control of. Notice how it cuts the palm in half near enough. There, that's better. And a person with this, a fate line that kind of shows this sort of dividing of the hand in two, it really is a sign that someone is just having a complete sort of lack of control over the events in their life. So at 42 there may well be a decision here to make changes, to try and take control back. I don't know if that kind of backfires in some way. And notice as well, a kind of well, God, I'm terrible today with this. Mid-30s, you can kind of see from then on the lifeline is weaker. And this is the left hand as well. It's not good. And you can just about make out a bit of a square here made up by this, feelings of, this is support, but also worry. There's a lot of fear here, essentially, around health. I don't know when this image was taken. Others might be more familiar when that image was taken. So I feel that for the next sort of 7 years or so, actually, I don't think this is going to be a short-term thing with her health. I think for the next 7 or so years, there's going to be potential in and out of hospital. And then at 42, there's a direct sort of decision here to make changes to her life, and I'm not sure if it's a good decision or not. I don't think it will be. I don't know what it is. I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. Do you know what? I was really hoping to see something a bit more positive in terms of her future, and now I'm actually a little bit worried. Overall, this is just such a wonderfully optimistic, just a lovely, decent person. And you may have already noticed this strong horizontal, almost sort of gash on her willpower here. This is stress. This is worry. There's frustration here around what she's not able to achieve at the moment. Let's see what the future holds. And I think in a couple of years I'm going to reread this person's palm. Let's see if we can see some changes in a few years. So we'll do a Kate Middleton part 2 in a few years' time. Let's say August 2027. Alright, I'll put that in my calendar. I'll do another reading. And we'll see if we can see some changes in her hands, hopefully. Hopefully, I'm wrong about a lot of what I've said here, and her health drastically improves. Lines on the palms change all the time. They show us what will be if we continue going down the road we are on. As I have said though, I do feel that this is a person who has less control over her fate than many others. So we will see. Let me know what you think of this reading, and please subscribe. Sorry about the lateness of this reading. I have had some PC troubles, but I will be back on form next Sunday with another Sunday case study. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.